and nurse scientist at Emory University. She also leads a team of researchers working to develop a wearable bio patch to help outdoor workers stay safe in the heat. Talk to me about how you have these conversations with your patients about keeping them safe outdoors.
Well, Isabella, when we talk to patients, we tell them how important it is to stay hydrated, to listen to their bodies when they start feeling symptoms of heat-related illness, such as cramps, feeling thirsty, feeling dehydrated. Sometimes you get headaches. Listening to that, hydrating, taking a rest in the shade to cool down. It's very important.
And actually, Dr. Chicas, you have a personal background here rooted in agricultural and construction work. What made you realize that heat wasn't just a matter of workplace discomfort, but an actual safety and serious life concern?
Well, growing up, I used to hear the stories from family and friends that they used to work outdoors in harsh environments and the blazing sun. And I would listen to stories, for example, of a construction worker who was on a roof working and got dizzy from the heat, fell and fractured his hip and his leg, or a farm worker who fainted also from the heat and only to be rolled over by a tractor trailer. And so during listening to those stories, oftentimes I also became an interpreter for injured workers because I was one of the few people in the community that spoke English and Spanish. And so I would go with them to seek health care. And, you know, I knew that heat was playing a major role in their injuries. And while I was there, I knew I could break these barriers of cultural and language, but I also felt that I needed to know more. And that's when I decided to pursue a associate's degree in nursing and then a PhD, because I wanted to have all the tools necessary to support this community.
And talking about deadliness, this really took me by surprise that extreme heat leads to an average of 800 deaths annually in the U.S. That's more than tornadoes, more than fires, more than hurricanes. I mean, this is serious stuff. Do you think that people are taking that seriously enough, especially in the agricultural sector where farm workers are 35 times more likely to die from heat-related illnesses than other sectors?
Right. So they are 35 times more likely to die of heat-related death, followed by construction workers who are 13 times. And there are no federal heat protection standards. There's nothing really in place in the industry to protect these workers. And so it is something that is often overlooked for this population that is constantly making sure we have food on at our grocery stores, keeping America fed, yet their safety is often overlooked.
You're actually an entrepreneur as well. You have an inventor, at least. You have built a wearable patch. Talk to me about what I'm looking at right here.
So, yes. So this was actually a collaboration between scientists at Georgia Tech, engineers, and computer scientists, biostatisticians, nurse scientists at Emory. We came together to make this small wearable device that you can wear on your chest. You stick it on your chest. And what it does is essentially tracks vital signs like your heart rate, your motion. And it's taking all of this data. And eventually what it's going to do is that we're going to use it to train AI to be able to recognize when a worker is heading into the danger so that we can send them alerts in real time.
To get help.
To get help, exactly.
Gotcha. And you can see all of this from your phone. You're getting data.
You can see, yes, it's on a phone, it's on an app, and it's tracking all of your signals, your heart rate, your ECG, your oxygenation, your motion. All of that data comes together to train AI to be able to recognize. And so I think it's a really amazing device that we've come up with because you can see how it's applicable to many other populations. So, for example, older adults are also more at risk to heat stress. Athletes, high school athletes also. So as a daughter, you know, I worry about my parents when they're outdoors. They still like to, you know, do gardening, lawn, do yard. And, you know, for them to wear something like this, I think would be amazing.
And so tiny, and it's not often we hear AI being used for good. So thank you so much for coming here, Dr. Chicas, explaining to us how serious this is and some of the solutions that are at play right now. Right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
We're at a demonstration here in Tokyo where people are protesting Japan's immigration law revision.
Some of the world's most influential bands came from right here in the UK, such as the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, and the Beatles. This week we have two African acts from experimental African genres, and they were inspired by the sounds that sparked a global music renaissance. I'll introduce you to a maestro of the Acholi music of northern Uganda, blending traditional drums, strings, and dance to create the novel sound of Acholitronics. But let's start with the frontman of Witch. That's a Zambian band that accidentally created a new genre from various influences. After 40 years away from the stage, Emmanuel Chanda and his new band are bringing back the psychedelic sounds of Zamrock.
You can't put boundaries on music. It's a spiritual thing. Sometimes you're going to listen to a song that you don't even understand its meaning, but it draws you closer. You just know this is a good stuff. I intend to cause havoc. My name is Emmanuel Chanda. I'm a musician from Zambia, bringing Zamrock here. I'm a change maker.
73-year-old Emmanuel Chanda started his musical career in the early 1970s, blending grassroots African music with a Western cultural influence. Now, after a long hiatus, which, short for We Intend to Cause Havoc, is back with a new iteration of the band, a world tour, and a new album. Jaggery says this forgotten sound is ready to rock again on the international stage.
Because they're saying, Zamrock, rock, from Africa.
From Zambia?
From Zambia?
Right.
How come we, it's creating this curiosity, and then when they are satisfied with what they see and hear, they'll come back again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel a little bit like a unicorn to be out here touring on Europe? Because the Africans you see in this circuit, Burna Boy or Tyler, they have a different generation. They were not alive when African countries got independence.
I'm happy because I'm able to export something that is unique to Zambia. Zamrock is unique to Zambia.
The music and the album cover created an atmosphere in my mind that completely blew me away.
Jaggery's life story was brought to the light by Joe Arlotta and Tim Sprang, two filmmakers who fell in love with Witch and Zamrock and traveled to the Copperbelt region of Zambia looking for him in 2014. They found Jaggery making a living as a gemstone miner in Lusaka, and in 2019 produced a documentary to tell his story to the world.
The music came back because of two reasons. There were reissues of the music, old music, by Now Again Records in Los Angeles, and then another guy from Italy came to do a documentary. So the two merged together, created some curiosity and interest in the Western world. And eventually they got me. I was alive. I'm the one who's supposed to carry the torch and rekindle the feel of Zamrock. I'm grateful too for this new lease of life.
Game on, yeah, let's do it.
Gio built a global coalition of musicians to travel to Zambia and unearth Zamrock, which produced the critically acclaimed 2023 album Zango, recorded in the same DB studios where the band first riffed in the 70s. Which has been on a transformative journey ever since. How would you describe this album?
We did this in Zambia because the label wanted us to do it in Zambia where we had done Lazy Bones.
Right.
They wanted that touch, I think. It shouldn't be too refined as Zamrock. It needs to be a bit Zamrocked. We left with two songs unfinished.
Right.
So the other one, I moved from that studio, went to another studio, and Sampa was on that song.
Geldof just planted a load of lyric sheets in his hands, saying, we're all going to go on at the end and sing Feed the World. It's hard to convey to you the sort of collegiate atmosphere, the fun of it, and the sense of what everyone was doing. I know that sounds really crap, like a Hollywood movie, but it's absolutely true.
That was such a magical moment. I was one of the special people who were allowed to experience that day.
Tune into this new episode of Live Aid when rock and roll took on the world. That's tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, only on CNN. Well, a massive asteroid that was originally hurtling toward our planet may no longer be a threat. That's good news. But researchers recently discovered the 200-foot wide asteroid, dubbed 2024 YR4, might slam into the moon, instead potentially carving out a new crater visible from Earth. Joining me now is former NASA astronaut Leroy Chiao. Leroy, thank you for your time to talk about this. When will this asteroid potentially strike the moon, and is there anything to actually be worried about here?
Well, the thing to keep in mind is that orbital mechanics is not a precise business. You might remember, I think it was 6 months or maybe even a year ago, when there was all this excitement about a huge asteroid that was going to come and hit the Earth in the next several years. And then astronomers refined their measurements, redid some calculations, and decided that actually there was no threat whatsoever. So we'll have to see how this goes. There's the Earth takes impacts every day, and so does the moon, much more so than the Earth. So this is really nothing new. It's just a kind of a big piece. 200 feet is a large asteroid, if you will. But we'll know more as we get closer and refine the measurements.
Well, thank goodness for their math, ever in our favor here. Will this outer space collision actually be visible from Earth?
So if a 200-foot object, a wide object, slams into the moon and on the side of the moon that's visible from the Earth, then we should be able to observe it pretty well with telescopes, certainly.
Okay, and let me ask you about this. 2024 YR4, it might be the largest asteroid to crash into the moon in 5,000 years. You were mentioning the size of it. How deep of a divot, an impact to the moon's surface, can we anticipate?
You know what? That's not really my area of expertise, so I couldn't really tell you. But I'm sure it's traveling fast, and it's going to make a big hole for sure. I mean, you could look at some of the things that we see here on the Earth. Meteor crater in Arizona was a piece of iron that was much, much smaller and made a pretty good-sized crater. So you look at some of the huge craters on the moon, notably some of the things at the South Pole, and it's pretty impressive what these objects can do.
NASA and the Indian Space Research Organization, they're expected to launch a new satellite into orbit this week. The satellite was built to capture images of nearly all of the Earth's land and ice surfaces. What are scientists hoping to learn from these new pictures?
So there are two interesting things about this satellite. First, it's being created by the Indian Space Research Organization, and it's kind of a joint thing with NASA, and that NASA instruments will be on board as well. There'll be two what we call synthetic aperture radar sets, and they're going to provide the most accurate radar maps of the Earth to date. And so that's pretty exciting because it will have a lot of applications for different kinds of scientists, and also for just understanding more of how the Earth is, what different areas of the Earth look like.
Well, Leroy Chiao, thank you for your time, and I'm glad that this is not a look-up moment from 2024 YR4. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm Isabel Rosales, in for Frederica Whitfield. We continue to follow our breaking news on a major trade deal secured with the European Union. Just a short time ago, President Trump emerged from a high-stakes trade meeting with EU leaders in Scotland and then announced that the two sides have reached the framework for a landmark deal. It comes just days before Trump's massive 30% tariffs were set to be imposed on European imports if a deal wasn't reached. Now Trump says that those countries will pay a 15% tariff. And he says that they are also vowing to purchase hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S. products, investments, and military equipment. Watch.
And we were able to make a deal that's very satisfactory to both sides. So it's a very powerful deal. It's a very big deal. It's the biggest of all the deals. It will be the biggest of all the deals.
CNN's Jeff Zeleny joins us now live from Scotland. And Jeff, this all happened very, very quickly today. The meeting was just an hour, although you mentioned before likely months went into the works for this. Walk us through what we know about this deal.
Isabel, the bottom line is this is the biggest trade deal in President Trump's effort to effectively reshape the global trading order. That has been one of his central priorities since taking office in January. He's been issuing many threats of tariffs, but they clearly have been working in terms of bringing other countries, allies, and adversaries alike, in some cases, to the negotiating table. And the latest example was today here in Scotland when the leader of the European Commission, who of course is negotiating for the European Union, she agreed to a 15% across-the-board tariff. Now that is significantly higher than the 10% tariffs in existence now, but it's much lower than the 30% threat that was coming on Friday and the 50% threat that was made in May. So clearly there has been an instance where the president has been using his threats of higher tariffs as a negotiating tactic, and in this case it certainly worked. This is how he explained it earlier today.
I think we both wanted to make a deal. You said something that is very important. It's going to bring us closer together. I think this deal will bring us very close together, actually. It's a partnership in a sense, but it's a very good point, and it's something that's very important.
Now, when taken together, the European Union is the largest trading partner for the United States. So that's why this certainly was so significant. One thing it adds, at least according to the chief of the EU, is certainty for businesses, and it sort of restrikes the trading balance here. But there are many pieces of fine print still to be worked out in terms of what sectors are specifically all included. One of those, very popular here in Scotland, is whiskey. There is no word yet, Ursula von der Leyen said, specifically on what those tariffs will be. So that'll be certainly more to come on that in the coming days. Pharmaceuticals also are a bit up for a discussion and question, as are semiconductors. But the broader underlying factor here is this is the biggest trade agreement so far, and more deals are yet to come. And you just get the sense that a deal like this will urge other countries to negotiate a little quicker. Isabel?
A big, big moment, but as you warned, we need to see the fine print as well in the days to come. Jeff Zeleny, thank you. Now to Gaza, where aid trucks are on the move. It is coming after Israel's military put a tactical pause in place for some of its Gaza operations. New video into CNN shows Palestinians running toward packages of aid being dropped off by Jordan. Gaza health officials say at least 6 more Palestinians have starved to death here in the last 24 hours. Earlier today, President Trump said after the collapse of talks last week, the situation in Gaza could be at a major turning point.
Israel's going to have to make a decision. I know what I do, but I don't think it's appropriate that I say, but Israel's going to have to make a decision.
Now, President Trump also said the U.S. would supply more humanitarian aid to Gaza. CNN international diplomatic editor Nick Robertson is with us. Nick, is the aid headed into Gaza going to be enough to alleviate the suffering? I think a critical number was 600 trucks of these were needed by the day, and this is the amount we're seeing in a week.
Yeah, so what we've seen today is 100 trucks on their way from Egypt. They could be crossing over into Gaza tomorrow, the day after, getting cleared, getting to people, and 60 trucks on their way from Jordan. So that's 160. So it really needs to be multiplied up a lot more. Part of that is going to be building out the distribution hubs that the UN has essentially put under wraps on the ground in Gaza because the aid hasn't been coming through. So there's They don't have the centers up and running to distribute it. So that's going to come. The UN says they've got 6,000 trucks worth of food in nearby Jordan. The key is going to be here, these humanitarian corridors that Israel said that it's opening up, and the tactical pauses, the humanitarian pauses in their conflict with Hamas, which continues. And these sort of tactical pauses will last 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours in a day and be sort of area specific. But if Israel sticks to that and operates it in a way that the UN can get those 600 trucks a day moving into the distribution centers, then it's going to be working. But we're still a long way from that, and Prime Minister Netanyahu has taken a lot of heat at home, not least from his one of his hardline right-wing coalition ministers, who said, look, what we should be sending to Gaza right now are bombs. We should be defeating the Gazans. And there's a lot of people in Israel as well generally say, look, the Prime Minister is now giving in to Hamas's manipulation of the situation and making it look like there's malnutrition in Gaza. And therefore, why is the Prime Minister giving in and giving humanitarian aid and not getting anything back? So there's a tough political situation, if you will, for the Prime Minister. But all of that aside, the big question will be, does Israel make good on what it's offering? And can the UN step up with the food aid? The UN says it can do its bit. The Prime Minister here is in a bit of a denial domestically of whether or not it's made a climb down.
Nick Robertson, thank you for that explanation and for all of your reporting. Thanks. Now back with me to talk about all these major developments today is David Sanger. He's a CNN political and national security analyst. David, good to see you again. Let me start by getting, and I didn't get time to do this in the last hour, let me start by getting your reaction to what President Trump had to say today about the money the U.S. recently sent to Gaza for humanitarian aid. Let's listen real quick.
We gave $60 million 2 weeks ago for food for Gaza. And nobody acknowledged it. Nobody talks about it. And it makes you feel a little bad when you do that. And, you have other countries not giving anything. None of the European countries, by the way, gave. Nobody gave but us. And nobody said, gee, thank you very much. And it would be nice to have at least a thank you.
Would have been nice to at least get a thank you. What do you make of that complaint?
Pretty interesting. The president's critics would make the point that the Gazans have been attacked because they're going after Hamas, a terror group, but even Gazan civilians were, over the past 2.5 years, attacked with American-supplied weapons. So, both sides have significant talking points here, and I think the Gazans might say, where were the restrictions on those weapons to make sure that they were aimed at terrorists and not that the civilian casualties would be kept to a minimum. And, historians are going to be debating for the longest time many of these points, whether or not President Biden should have put stronger restrictions on the weapons. You'll remember that in one brief time, he did cut off one kind of U.S. bomb. Whether or not President Trump should have created a special envoy just for the Palestinians to make sure that the gates got open to Egypt, put pressure on neighboring countries, make sure that the food was coming in at the rate that it was needed. And one of the concerns about the rate that of supply that was announced by the Israeli Defense Forces yesterday was that it would not be sufficient for the level of starvation that's now underway.
Yeah. And important to note, as Nick said, that not everyone on the Israeli side is for this either. You had one of Netanyahu's ministers saying, you've essentially surrendered to Hamas.